Brothers, what are we doing? We came here to free Ryloth from Separatist control, and we succeeded. But look around you. We're now being ordered to target the very people we swore to protect, and I will not be a part of it any longer.
Hey everyone, in Season 1 of The Bad Batch, we were introduced to clone Captain Howzer. Howzer was arrested after confronting Crosshair and his elite squad because he recognized that the Empire was not what he thought it was. After fighting to protect the citizens of Ryloth during the war, he could not sit back and watch the Empire take advantage of the same people. He was really the first major example of clones abandoning the Empire. After his speech against the Empire, Crosshair ordered that Howzer and the 6 other clones who stood with him be arrested. After that, we don't really know what happened to him. In Season 2 of The Bad Batch, we get the idea that many clones are starting to leave the Empire. Cody explains this to Crosshair before their mission to Desix. We also learn that the clones who do go AWOL, including Commander Cody potentially, are often not seen again. Howzer's fate was left unknown until the most recent episode of The Bad Batch. During the episode Clone Conspiracy, there is a clone trooper named Slip, who has information that reveals what really happened to the clone world of Kamino. Admiral Rampart had covered up the Empire's attack on the planet by telling the public that a storm had wiped out all of the cities. Now, first of all, this should not have been a believable lie to anyone who knew anything about Kamino, but that's just it. The general public did not know much about the aquatic planet as they had kept to themselves up until the Clone Wars. But really, a storm wouldn't have wiped them out. They had weathered storms over the generations for so long. In an effort to prevent the truth from coming out and delaying the defense of the recruitment bill, Rampart dispatches a mysterious assassin to kill Slip and anyone else who may be involved. Now, before you say anything, I'm not saying that the assassin we saw in The Bad Batch was Howzer, but I do think that whatever they did to this clone assassin, the Empire has also done to Howzer and many other clones who have tried to leave. The clone assassin was a sniper who answered directly to Admiral Rampart. He was wearing dark armor that loosely resembled clone trooper armor. In fact, it really did look a lot like Crosshair's black Imperial armor. After killing Slip and Chuchi's 2 guards, he is stunned by Rex, who was planning to meet Slip. Despite arriving too late to save Slip, Rex was able to save Chuchi. They unmask the assassin to discover a clone, but not a clone trooper. Rex explains that any markings identifying him as a trooper have been wiped. Now, here's where the theory finally kicks in. Remember how many clones are leaving the Empire only to vanish? What if the Empire is taking clones who go AWOL and doing something to turn them into these assassins? Perhaps they're able to reset the inhibitor chips or even wipe their memories. I'm not sure, but I think that there are a few options. What I do think is clear is that the Empire is doing something to have complete control over the clones who attempt to leave. And who's to say this won't bleed over to the rest of the clones eventually? So my theory regarding Howzer is that we will see him again as one of these clones, these clone assassins. I think this would have an interesting impact on the story, as it would be a way for the Empire to solidify their control over the clones. So think about it. Howzer is one of the first clones to willingly disobey the Empire. I didn't say he was the first, I just said he was one of the first. If the Empire could turn him into a brainwashed assassin that existed only to hunt down defected clones, their control would be unquestioned. It doesn't even need to be Howzer at this point. Any clone used to hunt down other clones who are desperate to get away from the Empire is a chilling move that exudes power from the Empire. I think we'll see Howzer in this way though at some point in The Bad Batch, most likely in this season since we've already seen one clone assassin and they've left his story relatively unfinished, in my opinion, and many others. So, side note, I found it incredibly ironic that the clone assassin referred to himself as a believer before taking his own life. It's like the clone had been brainwashed into believing in the Empire or perhaps something darker. So the next step of my theory goes a little bit further though. In Season 2 of The Mandalorian, we were introduced to the Dark Troopers. These troopers were formidable droids that were nearly unstoppable. It took Luke Skywalker to cut down a dozen or so of these Dark Troopers that had backed Mando and the others into a corner. And Mando was certainly accompanied by some powerful allies at this point. But if you didn't know, These Dark Troopers went through several phases before reaching the Phase 3 droid form we see in The Mandalorian. By the time Moff Gideon implemented these Phase 3 troopers, it had been decided that the final weakness in the Dark Troopers was the human element, so a switch to droids was made, which that's quite the contrast from the Republic choosing a clone army for the human element rather than droids. You can see how far the Empire has come from where they were then. But this makes me wonder about the early phases of Dark Troopers. Perhaps the first phase, or maybe even Phase 0 for lack of a better term, were these clones that had been brainwashed by the Empire. I think it would be really interesting if the clones tied into the Dark Troopers in this way. I also think this would create an interesting story element to the Bad Batch and overall story of the clones. Many of them are beginning to break free, so to speak, of the Empire's influence through their inhibitor chips. So we could potentially see some clones fighting for freedom against others who are being controlled by the Empire far beyond what the inhibitor chip did. I think this would create a really dramatic and ultimately high stakes dynamic for the clones and the story of the Bad Batch. But let me know what you think. Do you think it's possible Howzer is one of these clone assassins? If so, are these clones the early iterations of the Dark Troopers? I hope you enjoyed this theory video. Have a great rest of your day, and may the Force be with you.